things are going to change dramatically. What's going on in Gaza will change the international order dramatically because we're no longer going to be conned about this concept of international law.
Mm-hmm.
What we are noticing is if you're powerful, then you are the international law.
You are the law. Yeah.
Yeah, you're
You
the
are the
law.
law.
And now that we're starting to see the scam of all these systems that have been put in place, so that govern international peace and commerce, we know that no. Look at the composition of the Security Council.
Hmm.
India is not there. Africa is not there. I mean,
Correct.
we are almost 2.6 billion people.
Mm-hmm.
The India and Africa.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And we have the most countries in Africa in the United Nations, and yet we're powerless. So until you reform these global institutions, the sovereign states of the Netherlands and the EU will continue to camouflage what they're doing and recolonize us under the pretext of adhering to international law. It's their
Wow.
law, not our law. And it's the
Exactly.
same when they make the statement that slavery was legal at the time. Slavery was never, chattel slavery was never legal anytime, even in their own countries. They made it legal in the Caribbean, whilst it was illegal in their countries.
Hmm.
So
And,
there's
and that distinction is important, Dr. Phillips. Why? Please explain to our audience why that distinction is important about
Yeah.
slavery being legal.
Well, if they say slavery, if we accept the idea that slavery was legal, then they don't have to pay reparations.
Exactly.
And that is the trick,
Oh.
right? Because if it was illegal and it was a crime against humanity, then you must pay reparations. Now, there is a lady, Nora Whitman, who had a thesis document that showed how it was illegal. And even the current Jamaican judge, Patrick Robinson, who was in the ICJ,
Mm-hmm.
he showed that it was unlawful.
Right.
And therefore, the terminology, they tried to tell us that it was so far away and so long away. Well, my Christians get upset when I said Jesus was long away too, but the whole world is governed by AD and BC.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You see, we have to change the narrative. I and Sister Rhoda will tell you this. I say that slavery was the first nuclear bomb. Racism was the
Correct.
second nuclear bomb.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
The world.
Absolutely.
And so we have to start using our own language so that their people can understand what they did to us. The reason they don't want to teach history in the Caribbean or in America or UK is that they don't want their kids to know how horrible they are. And when people tell me that I'm a descendant of a slave, I say you're a descendant of a murderer and a rapist. The dialogue stops. They
Yeah.
no longer tell me I'm a descendant of a slave. So we have to create our own language because they use language to kerfuffle us and to take away our memory. We've forgotten that in 1650, Africa had 100 million people and Europe had 100 million people. By 1850, the Africa shrunk from 100 million to 95, whereas the population in Europe grew from 100 million to 265. So where's the missing 170 million Africans that they don't talk about? They tell us about 15 million that were brought to these part of it. They don't tell us about the devastation in Africa and the destruction of our tribes, and our grandmothers were left to starve and the wounded were left to die. They don't tell us about that. There's 170 million Africans in this Holocaust. And then they went back after they depopulated Africa